Just look into that camera right there.
You want me to say your last name?
You can do it.
Hi, I'm Brad Noffsinger, and this has been the Derek. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. How about this? Hi, I'm Brad Noffsinger, and I'm with Derek on his show.
Get out, drive you! Rocky's amazing behind the wheel. You know, I've never seen anybody get through traffic like he did.
You know, the funny thing is the kids, the way they get through traffic today, it's more aggressive, out of control.
Yeah, I understand.
And with guys like Noki and Drew, and now those are Northeast heroes of mine.
Right.
You know, you had Bentley, you had, God, I can think of a whole bunch of them.
Lee Smith, there was Dave Humphrey.
I hadn't run a race in a long time until I went up there and raced supers without a yellow flag. You know, usually you have a yellow flag.
You ran a super?
Oh, I ran a wing super for Brad Lickey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
ISMA deal.
where, up at Lee?
No, we ran...
Star? Probably?
No. We ran Cayuga, Canada.
Oh, okay.
I ran the one here at Concord. I ran Jennerstown.
You ran the Concord race in the super?
I set quick time.
Dude. I announced those races, and when that dude hit that wall going into one,
it looked like it was snowing.
Yeah,
they had a red flag, and I thought it was snowing because it was so cold. If you remember, the cool thing was when we went to run, might have been my third race in a super.
Really?
And so I had Dave McKnight and Mike Lickey as a teammate. And I watched them real close. I watched them go out on the track, how they ran. They'd run there once before, like 10 years before or something. I don't think Mike did, but Dave did. And so watching them go around the racetrack and seeing where they lifted, I wasn't thinking about how sound travels. So where I thought Dave lifted, which at the time he was quick time, and where I lifted, there was about 50 yards difference.
Oh, okay.
So I had quick time, and I came in, and Brad Lickey looked at me and he goes, "Man, you are nuts." And I looked at him, I said,
"Oh, you burying it into the corner like 40 feet deeper?"
"Oh yeah, way deep." And then he made some changes in the car, and he told me, he said, "If this thing is good at the beginning of the race, you need to leave. You need to haul ass, go as fast as you can." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because at the end, this thing's going to be wicked loose." And I said, "Super modified loose with a wing? Don't that thing, like, help you out?" He says, "You're not going to understand until you do it." And so I think it was a 100-lap race. It was a big race. And 3/4 of the way through it, we were still leading it. And I was getting ready to lap A.J. Russell. And this thing got loose. And I was turning more to the right than I was the left in a super modified pavement car. And I'll never forget it. I ran third or fourth, but A.J. Russell won the race.
I remember. And Purley was second.
Yeah, Purley was second.
Yeah, because I remember Russell in Victory Lane said, everybody kept saying Purley can't be beat, Purley can't be beat. Guess what? Yeah. Purley got beat.
And you know, the funny thing was, the car that he drove was a California car.
Yep.
So it was a little lighter, but it had a fixed wing. It didn't have the wing with the actuators on it. And he was a kid that went through like a driver training program with me at the Richard Petty driving experience when I was coaching over there.
Really?
So I knew him. But I didn't know he drove super modifieds until we showed up at the racetrack, and here he come bopping over, and I'm like, okay. I'd never heard of him before, you know. I didn't know who he was.
Right.
But obviously he was pretty fast because he ended up stomping us in the ground there at the end.
He was really fast. I remember that being such a huge event that weekend, too, with all the cars there. And I forgot who it was that buried it off into turn one that hit the wall. But Matt Dillner has got an amazing photo sequence of the guy hitting, and you can see how far forward his head is moving from the stress and the
I know who you're
the impact. I forgot he was in.
He was the computer chip guy.
I forgot his name. I forgot who the guy was that hit the wall. But do you remember during the race, though, they were going down the straightaway, the backstretch so fast and blowing so much wind, they actually blew the billboards off the backstretch.
We thought they were made out of paper. We thought, it was like canvas or something. Mm-hmm. And come to find out, they were plywood billboards. Mm-hmm. And they were it was sucking the nails out of it. I mean, it was.
You guys are moving the wind around.
The cool thing was, when I get to try something different, and I've driven about every kind of race car there is to drive, and when I got to drive that thing, Brad gave me an opportunity because I sold him a Silver Crown car for his kid. He actually made me money, and then I got to go for a ride.
That's cool.
And we went to Jennerstown first, the place in Connecticut.
Thompson?
Was it Thompson?
Thompson, I don't know if they were running at Stafford then.
Yeah, we ran Stafford.
You did?
That's exactly where we ran.
Oh.
A Brews place.
Okay. Jackie's place.
Jackie's place. Mm-hmm. So we went there, ran there, then we went to Canada and we ran Cayuga. So I got 3 races in about a week.
Okay.
Then about 2 years go by, and he says, "Hey, you want to run Concord?" And I said, "Yeah." My wife has never asked me not to drive a race car before in my life. She's never bothered me with it. She's been around. We've been together 47 years, and she's never, ever bothered me about what I raced. And 2 times now. Once last year, and the first time was in that super modified after I qualified. And I come in, and she was like in tears, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And the grandstands are standing up cheering. Brad Lickey's telling me I'm nuts. And the car felt great to me. It was bad fast. It was fun to drive. And
Concord's so quick.
And Concord's quick. It's got the dog leg. You go out there and you have a little bit of fun doing everything you're doing, right? As a driver, it's exciting. And that's the first time she asked me, and I said, "Yeah, we're not quitting." And then last year, I got an opportunity to drive what I hadn't driven before, a winged pavement sprint car on pavement.
Oh, nice.
I'd never driven one, but on dirt. And I ran the World of Outlaws. I ran CRA without a wing, USAC, things like that. But I'd never driven a winged pavement sprint car. Well, I thought that Supra was wicked. Well, that sprint car was way more wicked.
Was that a Mussey sprint car event?
No, it was a King of the Wings.
Davey Hamilton's deal.
King of the Wings. We went to Colorado to run the Colorado Nationals. A guy named Brian Gossel, a friend of mine.
Okay.
His crew chief, Scott Hirsch, he called me up and he said, "Hey, Brian's going to call you. He's got something for you." And he called me up and he said, "Hey, how would you like to come out here to Colorado and have a little bit of fun?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm thinking we're going fishing or hunting or, maybe play tennis or something. I don't know." And he says, right. "I'm going to bring a 3rd sprint car to the King of the Wings race and you can drive it."
At Colorado National.
Oh, yeah, big track.
Oh, yeah, big bumpy, too.
Oh, yeah, rough.
Big circle, right?
Yeah.
You never get straight.
It's a funny story because we went there for fun. The first 8 laps on the racetrack, I was 38th quick out of 38 cars, and my head about fell off. I'm telling you, I'd never felt my muscles in my neck after a 5-day workout with my neck. I'd never hurt that bad. And so I ran the 8 laps, came in. I got lapped by Davey Hamilton Jr., and I started working on my seat. And my wife comes over and she looks at me and she said, "I thought we were doing this for fun." I said, "The fun all ended when I was 38th quickest. We're going to fix this problem."
Right.
So I worked on the seat. I worked on a few other things. I worked on the throttle linkage. I worked on the brake. It didn't have any brakes, so we had to work on that.
Oh, my God. What kind of car was it? What chassis?
It was a beast.
Okay.
Not a brand new beast, but it looked brand new. All Brian stuff was nice. And, he had his killer motor in it. And so we go out there, and the second practice, we made some changes, did a few different things. And I was 15th quick in the second practice. Picked up a lot of time. I was still 2.5, 3 tenths off where I needed to be. And you run flat out. So 2.5 tenths, 3 tenths flat out, I'm missing something. So we went back. I started working on more things, and I asked him if he had some restrictors. I said I think it had too much horsepower. And we went from running dead ass last to in the top 3.
Wow.
In 3 practice sessions. So then it was time to qualify. So we get this bright idea. We need to weigh this thing. So and my wife's now, this is where she's deciding that I shouldn't be doing this. I'm too old, and I'm having more fun than I've had in a long time.
How old were you at the time?
It was last year.
Oh, it was last year. Okay.
62.
Okay, 60. You're 62.
I'll be 63
Holy
in
cow,
August.
Man, you look great.
Thank you.
You exercise. You take care of yourself.
Well, I'm not as much as I should.
All right.
And I'm getting ready to do some testing with my grandson. He races micros now, so
Okay.
and you know that. And getting ready to go and play with him a little bit. And he's really good at what he does, but he doesn't know how to rough the other guy up. So he needs to learn how to pay back, or not pay back as much as just stand his ground. And he's getting better each week, which is, I'm not putting any pressure on him outside of when he tells me something happened that didn't. I get on his ass pretty hard.
Don't you think, though, in a way that that's a good thing, because, you were just saying a little while ago, the kids are too aggressive now.
Well, that's what I was going to get at racing with the King of the Wings deal. There was only one kid, and maybe two kids. Brian Gossel's son was running. He's in his mid-20s, and Davey Hamilton Jr. was there. And they're kids. The rest of them guys were adults. I mean, one was my age, and then the rest of them were, in their 40s and 50s, and great group of guys. All the race cars were beautiful. There wasn't any junk there. It wasn't like going to some of these tracks and you get 25, 30 good cars, and then you get 20, 30 cars that probably shouldn't be out there.
And then they also get like a huge contingent from Idaho, right? From Meridian?
Yes.
Too? Okay, so they get a lot of cars from there.
Yeah, they were from all over, and the drivers were from all over, and a lot of friends that, it kind of pisses me off sometimes, but it does make you feel good. When a guy walks up to you, he looks the same age as you, and he says he used to watch you when he was a kid in the grandstands at Ascot or Manzanita or somewhere. I had a couple of guys who used to watch us at Manzanita. And he said that, and I said, "What car are you driving?" He said, "Why?" I said, "I'm gonna pass you before it's over with."
Right, I got you.
I owe you.
Yeah, that's you got a ton of wins at Ascot, don't you? Like
50.
I was doing the research, and you are third on the all-time win list in CRA.
Yes,
third on the all-time win list. The '79 Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
I looked that up, and those were the years when you won the championships. Were you 86 and 87, right? You won 2 championships in CRA. But I was looking at the schedule. You guys ran like over 40 races in a year. 62 races a year for 10 years of CRA. But then we would run USAC. We'd run ARA. We'd go up and run NARC. There's some great race car drivers up in NARC. When you went up there, when they came down to us. Yeah, the Kading's up there.
Whew. Brett Kading, Howard Kading, Tim, Bud. I raced with every one of them, and they're all great. Brett Kading's probably one of the most underrated sprint car drivers there is. He's won like 15 or 20 championships, and it's against good race car drivers, great race car drivers. So it's kind of like how do I want to put this? I got to put it politically right so I don't shoot myself.
No, you got to remember. Hold on. This show is rated M for mature, so you can drop whatever 4-letter word you want.
Well, the one thing I can say is when I was younger, and when I started racing sprint cars and midgets, I was 16, 17 years old, and I was the youngest guy there by a long ways. And the guys that were winning the championships were in their 40s and 50s, and I raced against Bubby Jones. Bubby was one of my mentors. Ronnie Schumann was one of my mentors. These guys, they would only help you to keep you out of trouble. They wouldn't help you to win, to beat them, but they would help you to keep you out of trouble and not to make the mistake and upset them or piss them off or anything like that.
That's what Drew Finoro would do for me when I was racing in NEMA.
Yeah. And that's the right thing to do. The right thing to do as an elder statesman, which that's the sad thing we don't have today, is to walk over and have a nice conversation with a youngster and teach him the ropes. You don't see that anymore. And I'll give you a prime example, and he's probably right now one of the greatest race car drivers running today is Kyle Busch. But when he puts his helmet on and he's down at the bottom of the hill where he parks and he drives up, he has no idea it's an 11-year-old girl racing against him or an 8-year-old boy. He doesn't know that, because he's down there with Brexton and himself and, minding his own business. He came there to race. He came there to compete.
Right. When he runs the micro sprints, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And he runs 200 miles an hour on a Sunday. And then he comes over and he runs a car that runs 75 miles an hour. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere until it hits. And then when it hits, it feels like it was going 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, then it hurts.
Yeah, so you get that situation in it. But that's what I was getting at with that King of the Wings deal. I got to race against a bunch of men. You know, there was only a couple kids there. The main event went 8 minutes and 22 seconds. No yellows.
Right.
I came in, I had to take a second to get my breath. That was the first day. The second day, we were a lot better. We ran 5th the first day. We were running 3rd the next.
Oh, so it was a 2-race weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It was a big show. It was the last King of the Wings race held. And I don't know that they're going to have it anymore.
That's unfortunate. You know, I think, one of the reasons, too, why that race probably went, in 6 minutes, you said?
8 minutes, 22 seconds.
8 minutes, and you said it had a bunch of guys your age and in their 40s in the field. I think also with that is their wisdom of, don't overdo it, don't be beating and banging on each other, and, be respectful.
Well, the funny thing was, and you would think that, but I didn't lift off the throttle for 30 laps. I never got out of the gas.
Right.
Lapping cars or whatever we were doing, and it was mixing it up. It was slicing and dicing and I was having fun.
Right.
I forgot to breathe. And that's the biggest sin in all of auto racing is when you forget to breathe. You wear yourself out quicker. And I was gassed up. And then the second day I was even more gassed up because I had a night to rest and think about it and think about how the car worked. And so we go out there and qualify 3rd, run 3rd in my heat. And the feature, we got something for them. We could win this race. And we get into lap traffic about halfway through it. And I had a guy with a flashlight on the back straightaway to tell me when we had 15 to go. It was a 40-lap race. I said, give me a flashlight. That way I know I can take a breath and see if we can't win it. And I was running 3rd at the time, and we got into lap traffic, and there was about 5 of them there. And we were all dicing around, and I turned left. I had to lift off the throttle and then get back in the throttle. And when I did, I didn't know it at the time, but it spun the center out of the left rear wheel.
Oh.
Felt like a flat tire to me. So I'm like, hell, we'll just stop. We'll get this thing fixed. We'll put a tire on it. We'll go and start in the back, and we can't be worse than 5th or 6th right now. We lapped everybody.
Right.
And I went in, and the guy says, you don't have a flat. I'm like, something's wrong. So I fired it up, and it got loose again down the straightaway. And, when you think you're getting a sign from upstairs, it was a sign to quit.
Yeah.
So I pulled it in the pits, went back, watched the rest of the race. And my teammate, I think he runs 2nd. He might have won it. Brian was fast. No, Hamilton Jr. won it.
So it broke the center section out of the wheel?
It took the splines out of the center of the wheel.
Oh.
So it was still on the car, but when it did that, I ran probably a lap and a half, and then it shot the nut off it.
Oh, really?
So after the race was over, I didn't know what had happened, and I walked over, and this guy asked me if I pulled the nut off the wheel. I said, no. He said, well, it ain't there. So I went out and I walked the racetrack. I found it in turn 3 and 4.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I found the nut. But the thing was, I was smart enough to quit. And watching the kids at Millbridge and watching these youngsters go and drive, Millbridge is a great training ground. Jeremy and Ashley have done a great job with this place. And it's a field of dreams as far as I'm concerned. He's raised the fences. He's done everything to promote big races there. But we still have a bunch of kids racing. So, I've suggested it a few times, and I think we need to do it. We need to find a current driver, not myself, a current driver that understands what right and wrong is, and then have the drivers meeting separate from the one that they do with all the drivers. Take these kids over there and talk to them about all the things that can go wrong. Because the one thing they don't teach in auto racing is how to crash. Yeah. So if you're not strong, if your upper body's not strong, if you don't know how to tuck, you don't know how to hang onto the steering wheel, it's not like an Indy car where, you sometimes need to let go of the steering wheel because it tries ripping your hands off. But you can't grab your seatbelts because that's like the worst thing you can do in our cars. That's part of your support is to hold yourself with your arms. And luckily enough, my grandson's pretty stout. Yeah, he's bigger than I am now, but some of these other little kids, I get a little worried about them when they crash. I've got a lot of little good friends out there now.
Right.
And, you try and give them advice. The hardest thing is their fathers, trying to get around them to help the kids out. But, man, there is some talent coming up through there. And the more and more they can race, the better they're going to be. I was talking to Greg Price this morning, and I didn't know where he was at the time. I thought he was in town. I wanted to talk to him about some chassis stuff. But he's got his son, Aiden, and they're racing at US 24 in Indiana.
Okay.
So there's races going on tonight, tomorrow night, the next night. And then in the next couple of weeks, you got all the Indy stuff starting. You got all the Charlotte stuff starting.
No, you could race multiple nights a week, and yeah.
If you had a helicopter, you could run 3 times a day.
We run next week at our track at Mountain Creek. So yeah. We're gonna have it'll be our 3rd race for micros there, and the first 2 have been huge draws. So we're really happy about it. And we're just building the car count and getting bigger and better. You got to come out. You got to like it.
I am sorry to say that we haven't been out there yet, but I've talked to the owner a couple times. My grandson raced out there in the box stocks, and cool little place, another field of dreams.
You got to see it now.
I
Big 20-something foot fences and wheeling lights all the way around. The big steel walls. They did a great job out there.
I heard about it. I watched videos, made my grandson watch the videos, and the stars aren't aligning right now for us to be out there with me. I told him if he wanted to go run, if he felt comfortable without me, he could go or get one of the guys that helps us and go with him. After how many years I raced, let's see, I could date myself here. I raced over 50 years, 57 years, something like that.
I was looking back at some of your records. I couldn't believe it. Like you were, what was it that you'd started in 1979? And
that was in a sprint car.
Right.
I drove a midget from 75 to 79 when I was 15.
What, USAC?
No, USAC wouldn't allow you to. The great thing about USAC back then was you weren't allowed to race until you were a young man. You had to be 21 years old. So they wouldn't let me race, which at the time I was kind of upset. I couldn't go race with those guys. But CRA I could race with at 16. If you were approved, you had to be approved. And then they had this thing called ASCOT Super Midgets and then USRC Midgets. You could race at 16. So I raced USRC. And there was a lot of great. Sleepy Trip came from there.
Right. Same motors and everything? Same
everything.
Same everything.
Same exact cars.
Oh, okay.
And then when they'd come and run Turkey Night or the 50-lapper the month before Turkey Night, we couldn't run because we weren't old enough. Couldn't get a birth certificate, I guess.
Oh, man.
It was bad, but I think it was the way my father brought me up, and I had 2 brothers that raced with me. We were able to teach each other. And then the mentors I had over the years, like I'll never forget the first bunch of guys that my dad had driving our cars. We had Jan Opperman. We had Gary Patterson.
Really?
We had some, legends in the sport.
We had Andy Stapp on the show. He was just talking about how cool Jan Opperman was and just the type of driver he was.
I got a funny story about Jan Opperman.
Okay,
I was just a little kid, and a guy that drove for my dad, John Redican, Jan Opperman, and the religion behind Jan Opperman. He was the preacher.
He was saved, right?
Him and Gary Patterson, both of them.
Okay.
And they were both drivers of my father's. And a guy named Jerry Day, he built what they called a Ram race car back then, which was my first sprint car. And they went hunting. And Jan Opperman's not going to shoot anything. He's not going to fish. He's not going to do anything like that. He's going to go eat salad and stand in the corner. Right? So they all go hunting. And they were trapping wolves and coyotes. And they had these traps that they set up. They set up all over the woods. And they would go out and they'd check the traps. And when they'd find it, it'd be this. And the way Redican explained it, he's the one that told us all the story when we were kids. He said they'd go up there and dog would be stuck in the trap. It wouldn't be a wolf to John. It'd be a dog. The dog stuck in the trap. They'd break the trap open, and Jerry would have 2 sticks. And he'd stick the one stick in the dog's mouth because he'd try and bite him, and he'd stick it and he'd hit him over the nose and knock him out. and then they grab his mouth, plug his nose, suffocate him, so that they didn't damage the pelt. Right? They didn't want to damage the fur. You know, that's what they were there for. And so they found this one, and my dad said that thing had to have been almost 200 pounds of dog.
Wow.
A big wolf. And he went in there, and Jerry got his sticks and went over there and knocked this thing out, and thought he ended his life, right? And he's sitting over there, and Redican's sitting over on a rock, and Jan Opperman's sitting on another rock, and Redican looks over at Jerry, and he says, "Hey, I hate to tell you this, but that dog ain't dead." And Jerry gets up, and he sees that dog. He goes back over there, and he does it again, right? He does this like 3 times, and this dog keeps getting back up. He finally looked over at Jan Opperman, and he says, "You got to quit messing with me, okay? Because now I'm getting serious." And he went over and he shot the dog, messed up the pelt. He ended it right then.
Yeah.
He looked over at him, and he says, Jan looked at him, he said, "He's going to be back." He said, "You better watch yourself."
Oh.
3 times he tried killing this dog.
Wow.
Couldn't get rid of him.
Oh, man.
But those guys, when we were little kids, we hung around with that group. You know, my brothers, there was 3 of us. Todd was my youngest, Bart's my middle brother, and then me. And then there was Gary Patterson, Opperman, a guy named Bill Gatta, Jerry Day, my dad, and Redican.
And this was all the mid-'70s, and
this would have
before
been,
you were driving for your dad.
This would have been in the late 60s.
Oh, late 60s.
Late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still a kid.
We were pups.
Right.
My little brother, he would follow Gary Patterson around. Gary Patterson's another great race car driver from the north, and he'd come down and spend summers at our house or whatever. But anyway, old Gary, he'd have a T-shirt on, a racing T-shirt, and my little brother would follow him around at the races, or we weren't allowed in the pits, so it'd be after the races or when we're washing the cars. And then pretty soon you'd see Gary without a shirt on, and you'd see my brother, and it went down to his ankles, and he'd be walking around in Gary's shirt. If he'd have kept all those shirts, it'd have been pretty good. But every week was like that.
That's amazing too. And like you said, when you had started, you were just young, and I was looking through the record books. You have the record for being the youngest winner on dirt in CRA, and the other guy that has the youngest pavement win is Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
And you're all of what, like 6 months apart or something like that?
Who, me and Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, we're 10 years.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait. Okay, different time frames. That's right.
Yeah.
My bad.
So Jeff, I was at the last Ascot race ever.
Right.
And I qualified a car for a guy named Mike Kelly. And we were, I don't know, I want to say we were in the top 10 quickest cars. And Jeff was driving for Raleigh Hemling, and they were struggling. Motors were having issues, and he couldn't get out of his own way, the poor guy. And he was just a kid, and I walked over to him. I didn't know him from Adam, and I walked over to him, and I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm not in this points chase." I said, "I come out here to have a good time. I would really love to win this race, and I got a good shot at winning it. But I understand points, and I've had guys give me a ride before so I could win the championship." Mm-hmm. And I did it. The last year I won the championship, I used one guy's car at one race. Mm-hmm. And so we were sitting over there, and I went over and told Mike Kelly what I'd done, and his wife got mad at me and told me I probably shouldn't have done that because she wanted me to drive the car. And Jeff, here he come, walking. He ended up they raced it that night. He had to score 3 points the next night. So he bought the car from Mike for $1, and they went over it, and they were trying to win the championship for Raleigh as well. Mm-hmm. But they couldn't do that on the first night. They could, because we'd changed after we'd qualified.
So Raleigh wasn't considered the car owner.
Exactly.
It only got driver points.
Yeah, and so the next day we sold the car to Raleigh, mm-hmm. and he drove the car the next day, and he won the points, but Raleigh didn't win the points. So it was worth the effort, but that was the last Ascot race. So
now, was that the Diet Pepsi car, or is that?
No, he was driving the Diet Pepsi car.
Right, that's what I'm talking. Yeah, that was the one that was having trouble.
Yeah, and the car I was in was an all-black Kelly and Kelly Racers midget. It was a beautiful car, a Bob East car.
You know, it sucks is Ascot is one of those tracks that I have always wanted to go and visit because it was around when I was still alive. I remember watching Thursday Night Thunder from it.
Okay.
My father had been out there before, but I'd never been ever. So when I heard they were tearing it down, I was kind of bummed that I never got to see a race with my own eyes.
It was the most amazing thing you ever seen Turkey Night.
At Ascot?
Yeah, because after the races, there was people out there with chainsaws cutting their seat out of the grandstands. It was crazy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'll bet you the last person left the next day about noon.
Wow.
It was so amazing.
Well, the place was historical, too. It was there since, what, the 40s or something like that?
I couldn't exactly tell you the day, and that's sad.
Yeah.
Because the Agajanian family's done so much for my family.
Mm-hmm.
But I lost a little brother there. That was a racetrack that ate race car drivers because of just racing. That's where they were gonna end their career, right? It took a lot of good race car drivers. My brother was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The track had the most unique clay in the country. It was sticky. You'd walk across it and pull your shoes off. You didn't have them tight. Kerry Agajanian's kids used to come across to see me after the races when they were little, and they'd come over and none of them had shoes on. It's like, what happened to your shoes? And they're stuck in the front straightaway.
I'm friendly with Josh Agajanian.
Okay, yeah.
We chat every once in a while, and he'll put up a story or something about Ascot Park.
Yeah.
He's
really. I seen his brother. His little brother. He actually worked with us when I managed Curb's Busch team when Stevie Reeves drove it.
Okay.
And we threw him his 16th birthday party. We threw it at the shop. We had him a visitor, I should say. He had a little stripper girl that we brought in.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We dressed her up as a cop, and she came in and handcuffed him, cuffed him to a chair. And
oh, God.
It was all good.
For a 16-year-old kid, that was an experience.
He was a wild little Indian. We slowed him down that day.
Nice.
We slowed him down. But he's grown up into being a really strong asset to the sports world.
Yeah.
With his management company and taking care of racers and stuff. So his dad took care of me back in the day and introduced me to a lot of good folks.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how did the whole NASCAR thing start to come? Because you were an open wheel guy, sprint car driver, 2-time CRA champion. When did you make the transition to stock cars, or you said, I'm going to Charlotte?
Oh, you're really going to like this story.
Okay.
I get a call from Mike, and Mike called me on the phone.
Mike Curb. Okay.
And I had talked to Mike quite a bit when I raced the sprint car. He'd always come down and see us. He sponsored me for years out there. It was always called the Curb Agajanian Special, our race car. We ran 96. We should have ran 98, but they had a 98, which was the house car. But I get a call from Mike one day, and he says, "Hey, this is Mike Curb." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. Who is this?" And he goes, "This is Mike Curb." I'm saying, well, first I didn't think it was him. I thought someone was pulling sheet over my head because we didn't talk that much on the phone. And he said, "Hey, how would you like to go and test a NASCAR stock car?" And I said, "Man, I'd love it. I'd do anything to do it." He says, "Well, you're going to get your opportunity. I got you a plane ticket. You're going to fly out of LAX. You're going to land in Atlanta, Georgia on, I think it was a Saturday or Friday or Saturday. And he said, you're going to test. There's going to be a crew there. Dale Earnhardt's going to be watching you, because if everything goes good and you like it, we're going to run you at Atlanta in 3 weeks, I think it was."
Oh, wow.
Well, I'd never told him I'd only driven a 4-speed on a forklift. I never told him, that I didn't have any experience in a stock car, none.
Right. So you even had a shift manual transmission or nothing?
No, manual transmission was putting it in D, right? I had a Jeep.
Okay.
So we land. He sets the deal up, Kerry Agajanian, and all of a sudden I've got Kerry saying he can't be my attorney because he's best friends with Mike, and I'm like, what do I need an attorney for? And he goes, well, you're going to have to sign a contract and you're going to have to know how to read it. I said, well, I'm good with a handshake. Okay, I'm good with whatever happens, happens. And so we went through the contract stage after I did the test. And we get down there to do the test, and I've never been to a super speedway. Mm-hmm. I've never been to, in a stock car on anything that big. And so I would, triple disc clutch. That wasn't like the Jeep clutch. So when I would back out of the garage, I'd spin the tires. When I'd go out to the track, I'd spin the tires and just keep it going so I didn't look stupid.
Right.
Well, I was looking stupid because I was spinning the tires. I didn't know any better. So I'd get out on the racetrack, and then on the racetrack, I flat-footed it. Atlanta, it was when it was a true oval.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It had a lot of character to it. It was fun to drive. Mm-hmm. And I came in, and they were excited. They said, "Whoa, that was good. You went around there without lifting. I thought that's what you were supposed to do." They said, "When them tires go away, you're going to have to roll out of the gas a little bit." And so we ran probably 10, 15 runs that day, and probably 5 or 6 the next day. And Earnhardt came over and he talked to me. He said, "Man, you only got to fix one thing." And I said, "Yeah, I probably got to fix a lot of things, but what's the one thing?" He said, "You can't spin the tires going in and out of the garage no more. You're pissing these guys off." And I'm like, "Okay, I won't do that anymore." And so I was able to create a friendship with Dale at that time, mm-hmm. and I wasn't smart enough to use him like I needed to. Of course, he was a competitor. He was only going to help you to keep you out of trouble. Mm-hmm. Another mentor.
Right.
But we ended up running the race. Probably my biggest, I've won championships, won big races, but my biggest thing was my first NASCAR race. Mm-hmm. I qualified 19th. They only took 20 on first round, and Richard Petty was 20th quick, right alongside of me. So
wow!
I was in hog heaven.
Right.
This was big for me.
Right. Think about that type of a situation. You are a short track sprint car and midget guy, thrust into the NASCAR world, and you're being put right next to the king.
Oh, it was. I'm like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. How did I get here?
And we finished 14th.
Cool.
We finished 14th.
What year was this?
88.
1988. Okay.
And then
And this was in one of Curb's cars.
Mike Curb, the Sunoco car. We were sponsored by Sunoco, number 98. Mm-hmm. Agajanian was a big part of it, Kerry and the boys. Mm-hmm. It was great. But I wasn't smart enough to not look for another ride or look for a ride. I was not smart enough to figure out how to keep their team going, if that makes any sense.
What do you mean?
They struggled, not with management per se. They had a great guy that was the manager of the team, but he was a supply sergeant in the military. So he treated it kind of like that. We needed somebody in the marketing department that was, helping us get the next big deal, to help keep me in a ride for the next few years, coach me on, what to say and when not to say it. I wasn't visible to the public a whole lot back then.
Right.
In the stock car deal. We got coverage. I ran against Ernie Irvin and Ken Bouchard for Rookie of the Year, mm-hmm. and we finished third, respectable third to them, but you got to consider both of those guys started in pavement.
Yeah, that's true.
And I had minimal pavement even in the midgets.
Mm-hmm. Ken Bouchard got the Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. Yeah, he was a good friend. We had a good relationship between the three of us. Mm-hmm. We'd hang out a little bit, and we all drove cars that were not the top 10 cars. They could finish there if we had a good day, but they weren't the elite. That we had our own engine shop in Curbs, and we had guys that could build engines that would last all day. But I'll tell you a good story. I was sitting at Michigan, 88, first time I'd ever been to Michigan. And this place is huge, 2 miles around. You flat foot that joint too. And I'm going around there, and I can't do anything. I'm turning the steering wheel as little as possible. I got my foot flat on the mat, and I'm running as straight as I can. Mm-hmm. There's no straighter, but I'm half a second off. I'm gonna be the last guy on the grid. Right now, I'm gonna be the last guy. And Chocolate Myers came over, great guy. He came over and he says, "What's the matter?" I said, "Don't know. I can't tell you." I said, there's no feel. There's nothing there. I'm straight as an arrow, flat on the floor. I mean, it almost feels like I don't have any horsepower, or I mean, it could be tight. I don't know, but I'm not turning the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay, and he turned around and he left. I'm like, Here he comes 5 minutes later. He's got Earnhardt with him. And here comes Dale Earnhardt. Walks up and he says, you all right? Yeah, I guess. He said, so what's going on? And I started telling him what I could tell him. He walked around the car, kicked all the tires. He said, told Carlos Johnson, who was the crew chief at the time, he told him, he said, hey, put 4 new tires on this car right now. He's talking to my crew now.
Right.
And I'm thinking he's going to send me out there on 4 new tires. And he looks over at me and says, what size helmet do you wear? 7/8. Does that work? He looks down in the car, crawls down in there, sits down in there, he puts the seatbelts on. He says, well, I can already notice one thing that's wrong, and it'll give you a different feel. Your seat's too big. He said, it fits me. I said, okay, we can fix that. We'll pad it up, or we'll bend it in, or we'll do whatever we got to do. And then the next thing I know, he's putting my helmet on, and he takes off. My crew's looking at me like this was my idea.
Dale doing Dale things.
Yeah, and it was chocolate. You know, he's the one that set it up. And
right.
He went out there and he smoked around there for 3 or 4 laps. He came in. He got myself, the crew chief. I can't remember who else was there. There was 4 or 5 of us standing there. Chocolate was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at them and he says, you got 1 or 2 problems, and I would bet that it's the one under the hood. He said, because the car doesn't feel tight at all. He said, the car feels good. He said, so I'd probably work on horsepower.
Okay.
So then he turned around and he walked away and left me there to try and figure out how to pick up half a second.
Yeah. How, what kind of a mentor was Dale Earnhardt? Because we've heard so many stories from behind the scenes of how he'd help people and did things for people.
I don't know that anybody knew he even helped me. But he was there every week. He would say hi. He would make it a point to walk over to see if I was there. Mm-hmm. And we weren't close friends. You know, it wasn't like I'd go over and hang out at his house or anything, which I wish I would have. I would have baled hay with him all day long. But like I said, I was so young I didn't know, and I was 28 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was still naive of how that sport worked versus sprint cars. Sprint cars, you jumped in them, you stood on the gas for 8.5 minutes, and it was done. Now I went from 8.5 minutes to running 4 hours.
Yeah.
3.5, 4 hours.
Right.
And Atlanta was easy. And I don't mean easy in a way that it was, it should have been tougher.
Right.
But compared to driving 8.5 minutes in a sprint car, I didn't get winded. I didn't have any health issues. I ran the whole 500 laps or 500 miles. But then when we went to places like Bristol and Martinsville and the places you think you would be easier at and it'd be better for me, no, those were the ones where I forgot to breathe.
Because it's just the duration of laps wearing on you, right?
Yes. No relaxation. You couldn't go down the straightaway and take a breath. Atlanta, even though the straightaways were short and the corners were big, I could breathe all the way around Atlanta. Daytona, I could breathe all the way around. Mm-hmm. Talladega. Pocono, I had a lot of fun at. Did well at Pocono. Michigan, we did well. We finished in the top 20 both times.
And the funny thing is, too, is, your first year, you're going from half miles, quarter miles to 2.5 mile super speedways, 1.5 mile tracks. And like you just even have to get up to speed. It takes half the season just to get up to speed.
Well, I thought for sure I'd be good at the half miles. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for Mike Beam, I wouldn't have been in the race at Martinsville. There's no way. We were screwed. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get the tires under me. And that was when they had the Hoosier Goodyear tire war. Mm-hmm. And they were on Hoosiers, we were on Goodyears. Mm-hmm. And nothing bad about either company, but he came over, and I had a relationship with Hoosier before because I'd won championships for him. And he came over and he says, here, I got 4 tires for you. Put these on. This will put you in the race. then give me my tires back, and then you learn how to drive. And so we put the tires on the car, and it picked the thing up like 7/10.
Really?
It was amazing. But then also when we ran Charlotte, which was another favorite racetrack, we were in the Open. It was called the Winston Open back then, and we were running really strong on Hoosier tires because we'd made the switch and the commitment to run Hoosiers. And I think they had 18 or 19 crashes because of tires. Well, one of them was my right leg and bruised up my left leg. And then we ran the next week, and we ran the Open and then the 600. My leg was still all messed up, but Mike told me if I could get in the car, I could drive it. So it was like, I'll get in the car.
Right.
But it was like the dumbest thing.
Well, okay. Well, in that, it's funny that you touched on this because you gotta give me the story of what happened when you hit the pace car.
Oh, that's the time. That's the time.
Okay.
So we're running. I want to say we were.
I saw a video clip online. I was like, all right, I've got to ask him about that and how that went down.
So it was big. We were running in the top 10.
What the hell were you doing?
We had a good run. We were running the top 10.
Right.
It blew the right front tire, and natural instinct, when it blows the right front tire, you turn to the left. Well, I turned to the left, and it clobbers the wall. It took the right front tire and put it on top of the transmission. It took the whole right side door bars. They were next to me. So, it was a huge hit. Mm-hmm. And I'm done. I'm out. I don't even know which way this thing's going. And it kind of goes up on its side, and then it comes down, and it's going across the grass. Well, as soon as it hit the asphalt, the thing hooks a left because the left front tire was turned to the left. and it clobbers. And still to this day, Derek, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, that's about the time I woke up. Is when it hit the asphalt.
Right.
And I look up, and I seen the pace car. I seen there was a guy, a security guard, standing, or an officer. I know he had a badge. Mm-hmm. He was standing behind that car, and I cleaned out the pace car, which shoved it into the chain link fence, which took him out into the fence. And broke his leg.
Broke his ankle.
Yeah.
I saw that on the news report. The only injury was a broken ankle by a security guard.
So we ended up in the hospital because they want to check me for concussion and stuff, and we're sitting there, and the nurse goes, "Hey, would you like to go over and talk to that guy you ran over?" I'm like, I didn't run anybody over. She says, "Oh, yeah, that pace car hit this guy." So I went over and I met him and talked to him for a few minutes. I was fine. He was getting a cast.
Did they charge you for the repairs to the pace car?
Oh, yeah.
Did they really?
You had to bring that up.
Oh, did they really?
No. So what happened was, God,
come on,
Humpy Wheeler.
Okay.
He says, I can't believe you tore up 300 yards of grass. He sends me a bill, and I get a bill for 300 yards of grass, a pace car, a chain link fence, and a security guard's foot.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm sitting there thinking, this is real. I'm still a kid. I'm thinking, and they want me to pay for all this grass. They want me to buy this pace car.
Right.
I call Humpy up. I say, hey, what's the deal? He says, I just thought you'd get a kick out of that.
You must have turned white as a ghost when you got that.
I already got a bill for the stock car.
Oh, my God, that's amazing. So you drove in the Cup Series for a couple of years. At what point did you kind of like get out and start doing the crew chiefing? And
well, the funny thing was, it wasn't funny. It was, like I was telling you earlier, we did not cover our bases to have a backup plan. Sunoco left us at the end of '88, and I'm sitting there for a month not doing anything because they're shutting the shop down, they're shutting everything down, and I wasn't smart enough to go get a job working for one of the teams. I was pissed. I was hurt. I went from winning 28 races the year before in a sprint car to winning nothing, and a win was finishing 14th, which isn't a win. Everybody don't get a trophy.
Right.
So I panicked, and I said, you know what? I told my wife, I said, let's load this shit up. Let's go back to California, and I'll race a sprint car. I can make good living driving a sprint car. So I went back, ran 2 years, and Pat Beatty, a guy that he used to be my,
Kyle's dad, right?
I'll tell you funny stories about him here in a minute. But he would call me all the time, see how I was doing. And good friend, he was my signboard holder. Okay, and I'll tell you that story here in a minute.
No kidding.
But he'd call me, and he said, man, you got to get back here. He said, I'll get you a job, or you can work with me, or we'll start a business. We'll do something hanging bodies or whatever. So I came back, lived with Pat, Gwen, Kyle, and Eric, and my wife stayed in California waiting until I got something secure. So we would hang bodies. We'd shoot bottle rockets across the parking lot at Rodney Combs. We had a good time, but it just wasn't what I needed. I needed to get back to the racetrack. So I heard Darrell Waltrip was looking for a spotter. And so I went over there and I met Sam Conway. And Sam was the manager.
This is when Darrell had his team?
Yes.
Darwall Incorporated, right?
Darwall over there on Hudspeth Road.
Okay.
And
the Western Auto car, right?
Yeah. And they said they were looking for a spotter, so they hired me, and I worked for Darrell for a couple of years. He found out I could fabricate, so he put me over with a couple of his guys, and I fabricated and welded and did all kinds of different things in there, but still wasn't what I needed. So I went back to racing, working for Barry Graham and Richard Petty at the driving school, which would allow me to race on the weekends. And then
what?
I'd race a sprint car. Around
the Carolinas?
No, I'd go to Indy. I'd go to Phoenix. I'd go to a lot of different places and run. Just get on a plane and go and then get back and then it really worked out good when I was spotting for Darrell, because we'd go to Phoenix and run the Phoenix race. Well, I'd catch a sprint car right at Manzanita and run that. And I took Darrell out there one night, and he got to watch me run a sprint car, and he told me not to disappoint him. I don't think I did. I ended up second. So, but
you didn't get Darrell in a sprint car that night, or
no?
He tried a super modified once, a long time ago at Oswego.
But we did get Jeff Hammond in one a few years later. I think it was like 92, 93, something like that. I got Jeff in one, and we actually ran together. I went out in another guy's car, and he went out in a race car, and we ran.
Sprint cars.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff also ran micro sprints around here for a little while back in the day.
He did, but he, he had a lot of talent, a lot of different things that he could do.
Really?
Especially the horses. But when he drove the sprint car, I was going to make it look good, and I had to actually hustle to stay away from him. Because every time I'd turn and look back, he was right there. He did a good job. I was impressed with what he did. And first time ever being at Paris, we did it at Paris Speedway out in California. And yeah, it was good. But then after the Darrell stint, I was working for the driving school. I was a test driver that they had over there. I would train their instructors, which would still allow me to race. And I got a phone call from Felix Abatis. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to get to race again. Get this stock car deal out of my hair, right? So my wife and I go and meet with him and Carolyn up in Charlotte, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is good. We're having a good dinner. And he says, yeah, I want you to be the team manager and crew chief for my new truck team. And I looked at Felix, I said, you're fucking kidding me. I said, I thought you were calling me up here to drive. He said, listen, if you start this truck team for me, and you get it rolling, I will let you run the Coca-Cola 600, the Open, and those races leading up to it. I said, you got a deal. And what I didn't know was how tough that job was. And we started from scratch.
I was going to say, you got to start a brand new truck team. Who was driving at the time?
Jay Sauter.
Okay.
Jay Sauter. And then Jay actually did really well for us. And I didn't get to run Charlotte because there wasn't enough time. We would have had to build another car for me, and it just wasn't going to work out. So it really wasn't that big a deal at the time because I was enjoying being a crew chief. And I had a lot of good guys around me. Towards the end of the year, Felix and Jay I don't know if they had a problem or what, but Jay ended up jumping ship, and he went over to Childress and moved his career over there, and we ended up with Robbie Gordon. And Felix called me. It had to have been 10, 12 o'clock at night. And I get a call, and Felix says, you got to get over to the shop right now. Our new driver is going to show up for you, and I want you to meet him tonight. Well, I've known Robbie for years.
At 10 o'clock at night.
Like, it's midnight when this chopper lands in the parking lot at Sabco. And Robbie gets out of the helicopter. I looked over at Felix. I said, you got to be kidding me. You got me out of bed for him? And Robbie come over and give me a hug, and it was funny because he didn't know we knew each other.
Oh, okay.
And,
how did you guys know each other? Obviously, California guys.
California. He ran off-road, and we ran around the same circles. He was just a kid. Mm-hmm. But he'd went to the Indy cars. He'd went to a lot of different things, and we'd met and crossed paths before. Mm-hmm. And so it worked out really good. We had a great relationship. You just had to give him what he wanted, and a lot of people didn't understand Robbie. Mm-hmm. If you gave him what he wanted, that's one of the greatest race car drivers ever. But he was hard to deal with sometimes, so a lot of crew chiefs didn't get their way with him. They couldn't teach him, and he couldn't teach them. Whereas I was a rookie crew chief, so it didn't matter. I mean, we'd try anything. If he said, hey, I wanted the left side tires on the right, we'd do it.
But this was his first venture into the NASCAR world, right? Into the truck series.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was just learning, coming from Indy cars, and here's your first year as a crew chief, so it's like first year for everyone.
Well, we go to Wilkesboro. North Wilkesboro is our first race. Mm-hmm. And so we've got this beautiful truck and trailer. We've got a great crew. We've got a great-looking race truck, and Robbie shows up, and he gets in it, and he leaves pit road and cleans out Dave Marcus and destroys both trucks. He destroys his truck.
On pit road?
Well, I think he might have made it to the back straightaway.
What happened?
I don't know. Maybe he was heating the tires. I didn't catch it. I didn't see it. And no one caught it on camera. I know it came back, and this thing was junk. And the lucky thing was we had another one. So we unload it. We race. He drives the balls off this thing and does a good job. I couldn't tell you where we ended up. It didn't much matter after second, right? And but we became good friends. And then Felix decided to move Robbie to the Coors car, and we were going to start a Cup team, and I was going to move from the truck to the Cup. So now you got a kid. I'm still a kid. And you got a guy that's going to move back here to race. He goes from a sprint car to a stock car, from something that don't shift to something that shifts. Mm-hmm. And then some crazy guy from Cuba gets this idea that he's going to turn me into a team manager and a crew chief. I worked harder than I've ever worked. We were at the shop 3 o'clock in the morning till midnight, 1 o'clock almost every night, getting ready for Daytona. Mm-hmm. when he decided to make me a Cup crew chief. And I'll never forget it. I was there probably 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was underneath the car just trying to learn more about it. I had guys that could teach me, but without just sitting there and looking, I wasn't learning anything. So I wanted to look a little harder. So every morning I'd get up and go in there, and I'm actually laying on the floor, and I hear the door open, and I'm like, I wonder who's coming in. It's Felix Abadas. He come walking in and he goes, who's in my race shop? And I said, I was going to ask the same question. Who's in my race shop? He dragged me out from underneath the car and said, what are you doing? I'm just trying to figure this thing out so we can be good at Daytona. And he goes, well, I like that. You always hear this early? I said, pretty much. I said, I've seen somebody walk by every now and then. I didn't know it was you. Thought it was like security or something. He goes, no, it's me. But it had a good relationship with Felix. He gave me a good opportunity. It lasted a couple of years, 3 years. And then I decided I didn't want to listen. We went from Robbie to Wally Dallenbach, which Wally and I are good friends. Mm-hmm. But you can only listen to so much as a driver to another driver until you say, hey, you know what, if you're having problems out there, I got my helmet in the trailer, I can drive this thing for you, because you're hungry to drive it.
Right.
And they've already done a lot in their pavement career or their careers, and they think they're maybe a little different than the rest of us, but I would have given anything to drive that car.
Right.
But you know what? I wouldn't change anything for the world. I had a lot of fun. We did a lot of things we wouldn't have had an opportunity to do, even with Felix, even though I didn't get to drive.
Right. Wait, you didn't get to run the Open or the 600, but did you at least go to Felix and say, give me a shot running this thing because we've got this guy, that guy, and...
No, what's funny is I wasn't interested then. I was so, I came from winning 2 championships to stock car racing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got there, that was when that opportunity came, I wanted to be a championship crew chief, but I was about 20 years behind on knowledge. At that time, you didn't use the computers as much as you do today. You didn't have engineers like you do today.
Right.
The only engineer I think that was out there was the one Michael Waltrip had. He was probably the first guy that ever put a laptop on pit road and do fuel mileage, do stuff like that. Everybody else did it with a pencil and paper.
Right.
I mean, our pit box was a bar stool on top of a wagon that held a few tools.
I know, it's so funny. You look at some of those older videos from back in the day, and it's just a toolbox on wheels, and that was it. That was your pit wagon.
We had a nice set of wheels so you could roll it across the pit, so you had big wheels.
What is, over the years, I mean, God, you've raced everywhere with everyone. You owned a Silver Crown team. What has been like one of your most memorable or funny stories that you usually tell around the campfire?
I can tell you a bunch. I got so many good stories.
We got to get you and Andy Stapp in here to kind of just feed off of each other. That's what we got to do.
You're good. One sprint car won, and like I was telling you earlier, Brett Kading's probably one of the best guys I ever raced against.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this J.W. Hunt. He was a strawberry farmer.
Right.
He sponsored Brent and Jack Hewitt, and I think Mike Sweeney might have been one of them.
Right, he was on a few cars. I remember that.
And then Mike Curb, Kerry Agajanian, they were on my car, and those 2 car owners and all the sponsors were standing over in a corner saying, "My driver's better than your driver," and they put together this match race, and there was 4 of us in it, and we each got to start on the pole, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then they did it by points.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd won one or 2 of them. Brent won 1 of them, and then he'd run 2nd in 2 of them. So whoever won the final was going to have the money,
right?
$10,000. And them sponsors were over there in the corner, and they're putting the money out on the table. So when we left, whoever won was going to have that cash.
Right.
So we're sitting there, and man, I respect them guys a lot. And it's hard when they're your friends, and you got to lean on them a little bit. Well, Brent and I have never put a wheel to each other, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And we started this race, the final race, we started the 2nd row, because that was our turn to start 3rd and 4th. Mm-hmm. And Sweeney and Hewitt started in the front row. And when they dropped and Jimmy Gardner, he was my crew chief at the time, and Jimmy says, "Hey, he's driving a winged sprint car, not a non-wing sprint car." He said, "You drive that thing in there like it's qualifying, and he will not beat you."
So, you guys were running wing sprint cars?
Non-wing.
Oh, you were running non-wing.
Non-wing.
Okay.
At Ascot. So it was not out of Brent's element. God, the guy won Turkey Night. He's won the Western World. He's won big races without a wing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm concerned. This guy here's the guy that I got to go up against. I'd have been a lot better going up against one of the other 2, I think, at my racetrack. And so when they dropped the green flag, we started 2nd row, and by turn 1, we were both running 1st and 2nd. I was on the inside, he was on the outside. And I'm thinking, I got by both those guys. I'm thinking, who's outside? And I kind of looked over, and out of the corner of my eye, I seen it was Brent. Read his name on the side of the car. I'm like, oh, shit. So we go down the back straightaway, and I run it in there as friggin' hard as I can. And Jimmy's, I got this in my head that the harder I run it in there, this wing car is going to turn over. I run him in there again, and I'm giving him room, and we go down the front. We get through 3 and 4. We got to run 4 laps. It's 4 laps. So 2 laps, we ran literally as close as you could run, wide ass open at Ascot on a flat racetrack. I mean, in a sprint car.
Right.
And so I figured, when we got the white flag, I'm like, I gotta run him into one as hard as I can. Don't lift, bury the thing in there, and I'm trying to stick on the bottom so that I don't crowd him. And I'm going, and I look over, and I could see the oil tank, or not the oil tank, but the pan. They were back then. We ran dry sump motors, but they had aluminum oil pans, and I could read the Dan Olson on the oil pan, and I'm like, "Whoa, he's done." Right? You're thinking he's turned over because the oil pan's up here.
Right. And
we go down the back straightaway, and I could still feel him. He's still there. And I look over, and it's like, holy crap. We did that to the checkered flag. I beat him by a car or a tire. Beat him by a tire. And
was he wheeling? Was he getting the front end off the ground?
I don't think his tires ever touched the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he was on the right rear the whole time. But it was probably the most exciting race that I'd ever run in my career, and it lasted 54 seconds.
All right, with 4 cars.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
4 cars. And everybody was right there, but we just happened to be the better 2 of the night. It wasn't like Mike was any worse or Hewitt. You had 4 guys in there that had run hard together for years.
Right.
And so we got out of there, and it's like, whew, I couldn't believe we won the money, and nobody got crashed. It was actually awesome.
And $10,000 in your pocket back then, it goes a long way.
Oh yeah, that was
a lot longer than now.
I'm trying to think of what year that would have been. Had to have been '89. Had to have been after Cup.
Wow. So you ran in the years in Cup where they were having the left the bias plies and went to the radials then, right?
We never ran the radials.
So you ran on bias plies?
We ran on bias tires the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, and it was fun.
Okay.
It was fun because you could slide the cars. It helped me. I think if we would have been on radials to start with, I might have been a little tougher going from the dirt. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. I ended up being a test driver for NASCAR events later on in life with the Petty deal. We'd go in brand new racetracks. We were the first ones on the racetrack. We'd go out there and run and put rubber on the track and try and take the green off the racetrack per se. Right. We'd do it 2 or 3 days at a time, and it was fun. There was guys like Randy LaJoy with me, David Green.
Just having a good time, right?
Well, we did, and I'm going to tell on Randy a little bit here. We went to Phoenix when they first changed the configuration of Phoenix. And LaJoy's funny, so we get in this rental car, and we're driving around the track, and we get down what used to be the front straightaway, and we're going down it. Now it's the back straightaway. We're going through 3 and 4, and we both look at each other as we're coming off of 4 and go, oh, man, there's a shortcut. So Randy takes this minivan or whatever we're in and takes a left-hand turn and drives right. He was the first guy.
Right through the apron.
Right through the apron, right? And he goes through this friggin' apron. The van bottoms out, and I'm thinking, holy crap. I don't know how that'd be in a stock car. Randy goes, man, it'd be a lot better. So we're out there later in the day, and we're probably on our 10th set of tires. We'd run, 50 laps apiece, and we're out there probably 200 miles into this deal, right?
Right.
And Randy, I hear him key the mic up. He and I were running together. He was leading, I was running second. We come off of 4, and he goes, it's about time, Noffy. And he goes across that apron, it hits, and exhaust pipes are coming off the car because we didn't have any rules at Petty's. We could run the car as low as we wanted.
Oh, my God.
Shit was flying, and he goes down into turn 1, goes through turns 1 and 2, and then we're going down with the straightaway, the real straightaway, and this thing hooks her right and buries it in the fence. Like, it just junked this car. And
right in front of you.
Oh, right in front of me. I slowed down. I kind of seen it coming. I knew it was going to happen because he ran over a lot of his own crap before he got there. There was a lot of stuff still coming off the car.
Right.
And so he cut a tire, probably a right front, and it just snagged it over and cleaned out the fence, right? So I'd slowed down because I'd seen it coming, and I pull up alongside him. I say, hey, buddy, you all right? He says, oh, yeah. That's all he said. And I think he drove it back to the pits too.
Oh
I think he wheeled that thing back in.
Amazing. And it's funny, we had Randy on the show, and he was telling us it was probably one of the last times he drove, a car. But for you, over the years, I mean, you did the NASCAR stuff. You had your own team for a little while, midgets and the sprint cars, and you got rid of that, right? And
I thought I was out of the racing business when I got rid of my Crown cars.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter happened to have a son,
mm-hmm.
my grandson.
Right.
And so then we thought, we're going to buy another race car. So we bought him a quarter midget. I'm not that dad that's going to go there at 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. I'm the only one working, and the little kid's over there playing football with his buddies.
It's a different crowd.
Yeah. We sold everything, and I bought him a box stock, thinking that'd be a Saturday night show. Well, shit, then you walk in there and there's every freaking cup crew chief in the business, and they got friggin' wizardry going on in there, and tires soaking and whatever else they could do, and it's like, I don't want to do this either.
Well, they can't tire soak. They impound all the tires.
Well, I don't think they did anything back then.
Back then, maybe. But I tell you what, the box stock division in this area of North Carolina, whether you go to Millbridge or Mountain Creek, I mean, they are separated by thousands of a second.
It's a great race. There's a couple of them little kids out there that I love watching run.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me. I didn't understand the go-karts. I didn't understand the wing with a roll cage that was bolted on the car that was spring-loaded. And I didn't understand that stuff, and I didn't really want to. Mm. So I think it's great. I think it's a great training ground. But then when they started running the micros, we used to test our Chili Bowl cars there all the time. I had Brady Bacon driving for... I took care of a team for 10 years for Frank Manafort, and he let me hire the drivers. He had input on it. But
you guys won some big races, too.
Yeah. We won the inaugural Indy race.
Right.
We won the Loeffler race. We did really well, but it had a lot to do with Bob East coming on board, running a Beast chassis, having drivers. When we first started the team, Frank wanted a spike, and I'm like, everybody's got a spike, Frank. I said, I said, you got one. You run it up there at Bear Ridge. I said, we need to build something different, and we need some support because I'm not that smart guy. I said, I can build a beautiful race car, but I'm not the guy that can turn them wrenches like they need to be turned. I said, we need to get Bob East. He said, he didn't know about midget racing that much. And when he told me he wanted to go national midget racing, I actually told him he was friggin' nuts.
Because he had done a little bit with the Seymours.
Right? that got started through me, and that's how I met Frank. Bobby Seymour and I have been buddies a long time. I actually drove their Silver Crown car years ago.
Right.
And Frank, per Bobby, came down to buy a midget that I had. I built it in memory of my mom for Turkey Night, when they started running Irwindale. And I had this thing sitting there, beautiful car, and I'd got the frame rails from Stryker, but I'd put all the pickup points on. I wanted to build something myself. So I get this thing all done and run it a couple times. And it's fast, but the thing was like a light switch. It was either good or bad. So I had it sitting in the garage, and Seymour, he called me and said, hey, I'm sending some guy down there, and his name's Frank Manafort, really nice guy. I had no idea how much Frank was worth. I never did until after he passed. But this guy was worth billions.
Right.
And he wanted to build. If I'd have known that, I would have told him just buy the midget track and we'd go run. But he wanted to own a national midget team, and I said, you know what? I said, if you want to do it and we can do it this way, I'll take care of it for you. But I'm taking care of it down here in the Carolinas. I'll drive all the miles. I'm not worried about that.
Right.
And Wade Brown and myself, we had a little business going, managing some cars that we ran in the Ford Focus series. So when we took this deal on, it was a full-time job. It took our 8,000 square foot shop and turned it into a national midget shop. Okay. And Bob built all the cars. I actually told Frank I could get Bob, and before I talked to Bob, and then I called Bob up one day and said, hey, we need to do this deal. We need to put your name back on the map. You used to be the king ding-a-ling of midget racing and sprint car racing. Let's do this again. Come help me. And so he wanted a little bit of money, but not near what he's worth. And I said, and then he wanted his expenses paid. I said, we can do that. We can do that. If you come with me, we can do it. So our first race, we ran the Loeffler race, we were running second, and it broke. The car broke. We had he bounced it off the fence once, and it broke a rear stop.
Mm-hmm.
We had it won. Then we went to Turkey Night, and you know when you're
Turkey Night was at Ventura, right?
at that time it was at Paris.
Oh, okay.
And Bob and I are always trying to build light race cars. Always. Never interfere with driver safety, but build a light, bad, fast race car. So I found this battery, and it was like eight cell battery. I put it in the car, and they said it would be plenty. I needed like 3 of them. I only had 1. So we changed batteries on our first Turkey Night and finished 10th. We changed it, pushed him back out, finished 10th. So then our next race is the Loeffler race again, right? The next race we go to, and we win it. Brady, he just stomped him in the ground. He was so good on a racetrack like that, probably micro experience and stuff like that, but he did a great job. We went and won the inaugural Indy race with him. Mm-hmm. We had Chili Bowl won twice, but Brady's too nice sometimes. You know, he's a money racer. He reminds me of Ronnie Schumann, the guy I raced with for years. Mm-hmm. But he is a very smart racer, and so was Ronnie. So when you watch a guy like that go, you can't second guess him. And we probably should have won 2 Chili Bowls. Yeah, he was that good.
Well, it's one of those things.
Yeah, that's why they call it. That's why they call it racing and not winning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting close to the end of the show, but definitely wanted to thank you for coming in. Before we go, where can we see you guys run? What are you up to? What are you up to recently? You know, what are you doing now? Actually, that's what probably most of the fans want to know. The first question is, what are you doing now?
I actually, after all these years, took a real job. I work for a company called RevChem Composites, which is really good because we sponsor the Coletta drag race team. Mm-hmm. So it's got me involved with a little bit different racing. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I get to travel around to all the race shops and try and get them to get products from us. We supply all the materials to manufacture carbon fiber, fiberglass, gel coats, you know, things of that nature, and it's opened up a lot of doors. So, but my biggest thing right now, not only I started a warehouse or opened a warehouse for a company based out of California in the Carolinas. So it's startup. We're looking at doing fairly well this year. My grandson's racing the micro. That's, you know, you work. We were laughing about it the other day. I'm working half day. I work from 6 a.m. till 6, 7 o'clock at night at RevChem, and then I go home and I work on the micro if I'm still upright. And then my grandson, he tells us when we're racing,
really? Because
I can't look at the schedule.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not smart enough to look at the schedule, and he'll say, "Yeah, you know, we're racing tomorrow, right?" And then he'll go, "You know, we could run the wing and the non-wing same night." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a bright idea." So we did it last week for the first time, and it was challenging, but the kid did a great job, and he's getting better every week. But he's only got a year under his belt. He's 14. He doesn't have the quarter midget head start that most of the kids have. Mm-hmm. I think in another couple of years, people will be knocking on his door to try and get him to drive their stuff, hopefully.
Well, that's awesome. And it's probably giving you a little bit of, liveliness again to be able to go like racing with family.
You know, I never thought that I could get excited watching somebody else race. And there's 2 kids out there I've helped recently. Tylen Trammell, he's won. He should have won the other night, that poor kid. He led not every single lap, but the last 20 laps going away, and something broke in the steering, and he ended up sticking her in the fence. I mean, I felt bad. White flag lap. And then my grandson, the last 4 races, has showed some really good progress, and I'm happy with what I see. Mm-hmm. But the scary thing is Millbridge is so wicked fast for those cars and those little kids that, you know, this is probably the first time I've ever walked back and just one time before with Jason McDougal, I walked back to the trailer because I didn't think we were going to finish the race, how fast he was going when he won Hop Stop for us. Mm-hmm. But my grandson the other night, I think he passed 5 cars in one corner, first time. You know, he railed the fence, did what he was supposed to. I watched it for about 3 laps, and I went and sat in the trailer.
Yeah, Grandpa's sitting there going, "Oh shit."
Yeah, and this is gonna be friggin' rough.
Oh,
but he's good. He's got a good head on his shoulders. And I'll say this, so hopefully he'll watch us. He don't want a shot at the title yet. We've gone nose to nose a couple times when he gets to be a little smart ass, and I told him, I said, you know, I'm not afraid to scrap with you. Okay, so just let me know when you want a shot at the title.
Oh, God. What, do you guys bicker and argue in the garage?
Oh, yeah, it's typical.
Oh,
it's like a father-son, but his dad's helping us every week now, a guy named Joe Pinney. We got Mark Daly, you know, part of the team.
Okay.
So we've got some good help. Factor One race cars are helping him out.
Okay. Do they bring team cars to the track anymore at Millbridge? I don't see them as much as I used to.
Mark and I own Factor One together.
Oh, okay.
Here. Factor One, the original, is Sherry and Jimbo McDougall, Jason's grandfather and grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I met them. And they gave us some race cars. They helped us out get that business started. And it was way too much work. We didn't want to, you know, you're running for parents. You're not running for kids. Parents would come up, this is what I want to do, this is how much money I can spend. You know, they don't understand, a lot of them don't understand the racing aspect. So
when they spend and spend and spend, then they go, why aren't we winning?
That's right. Yeah. There's one winner, and we actually won some races. We should have won with Haley Deegan. She did a great job. We won with Chase Cabri the very first night we ran. He's
a good shoe.
He it's a shame that he's holding the camera.
Right.
That kid is really good.
Yeah.
I love watching him race. He won with us with a wing and without a wing. And then Bundy's kid, little Bundy.
Oh, Ethan Mitchell.
Ethan.
Yeah.
He drove
He's another good good driver.
Another one that came out of Millbridge. He did a good job. I think the next one you're going to read about, I wish it was my grandson, but he's a ways away yet. He's getting there, but I think little Tylen's going to be a terror, because last week he showed some strength.
Yeah.
I mean, he was actually fun to watch.
That's cool.
And like I said, you know, my grandson was really fun to watch. He ran the wing and the non-wing that night. And at the beginning of the night, he was slow, and I couldn't figure out why. And we think the motor laid down. We didn't catch it quick enough. And then by the time you get one hot that night, you might as well forget about it, because it's not going to come back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you got to let them cool all the way down?
Well, I don't know. It wasn't right with a wing. But we ran him without the wing, and he went out there, and God, he was passing cars left and right, finally throwing some clean sliders and doing good. And then all of a sudden he pulled in the infield, and I asked him later what happened. He said it got hot. He didn't want to burn it to the ground. So he's done that a couple times where he's saved us a race car. He's good at missing wrecks.
That's good.
He has been involved in a couple that I think could have been avoided, and you know, he's only going to learn by running.
That's it. That's how they do it. Well, if you ever get a chance, take a Sunday out and come visit us over at Mountain Creek Speedway. I think you'll like the setup.
We were going to do it until you said it was next weekend. I got to go to the drag races with Coletta's.
Okay.
And I'll be with the Coletta race team next weekend.
Well, keep an eye on our schedule and come on out.
I'll get it before we leave.
Brad, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thank you, Derek.
We got to get you to come back, because I'm sure you've got a ton more stories that you can share with us.
We'll have to talk about Pat Beatty sometime.
For sure we will. Brad Noffsinger joins us on the Derek Pernesiglio Show. We want to thank all of you for joining us, and as always, we'll see you the next time. Bye.